Year 2021 coming to an end, the success and rise of Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks becoming one of the most accomplished young superstars the game has ever seen, winning every major award, likely more to come, the bounce back of vintage Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry becoming the all-time three-point king, tons of untimely injuries, ruining many contenders, the Lakers still seeking for an identity after the bubble run, CP3 making his first finals, Nikola Jokic first-time MVP, but a couple former players, some of whom's been retired for years, have made tons of headlines, and a few more now well known today than when they were actually playing. With that said, let's take a look at 10 former NBA players more famous now in 2021, not including the 3 first-time head coaches, former players Chauncey Billups, Willie Green, and Ime Udoka. Billups' first-year coach with Portland, already a well-known player, one of the best point guards during the 2000s. Willie Green, New Orleans head coach, the 40-year-old known for his time with the Sixers, a solid role player, while Udoka, former role player mainly for the Spurs, averaged just 5 points for his career, now the current head coach of the Celtics replacing Brad Stevens. All these former players having a tough start to their head coaching careers, interesting to see how long their careers last on the sidelines. These 3 making noise for poor starts, and none of them in the hot seat yet. If they don't figure it out in a year or two, they could end up being replaced faster than you know, having one of the most difficult jobs in all of basketball. A former legend who hasn't played since 1982, regarded as one of the most forgotten and underrated players in NBA history, finally got his recognition, making the Hall of Fame 39 years after his final season. Bobby Danrich, former 4-time All-Star, 2-time champ, All-NBA team in '79. Everybody remembers Kareem, Jabbar, and Oscar Robertson for the '71 title team, but many don't realize the impact of third option Danrich in his second season, averaged over 18 and 8, became this team's second leading scorer that postseason at 19.2 points. Although many people my age might not be too familiar with Danrich's name, many hoops junkies who grew up in the 70s and 80s extremely satisfied, waiting over 3 decades for Danrich to get inducted, similar to fans of the 90s waiting for Glenn Rice to one day get in. We might have to wait another 20 years, or fans growing up in the 2000s waiting 40 years for Shawn Marion after retirement to finally get in the Hall. Danrich, 74 years old, would become Milwaukee's number 2 option in the mid-70s, an 18 to 22 point scorer his best days. Danrich became arguably the best signing in Washington Bullets franchise history. Summer of '77 made an immediate impact, a 19-point scorer, helped lead Washington to a title, put up over 21 a game in that title year, a terrific two-way player, fitted nicely with Wes Unseld and Elvin Hayes. Danrich also could have been Finals MVP, the second leading scorer for his team at 20.4.7 rebounds against Seattle. Teammate Unseld received the nod, a jack-of-all-trade type player, went toe-to-toe with Dr. J the '78 Conference Finals, a clutch jumper in Game 7 of the '79 Conference Finals, finished 5th for MVP voting in '79. It's an absolute travesty it took so long for a former 2-time champ, playing a huge role for both title teams, a 4-time All-Star, and somebody who's finished as high as 5th in the MVP race to make the Hall waiting that long, well deserved for Mr. Bobby D. Ben Wallace, who's been somewhat forgotten since retirement, but his name talked about more now that he's made the Hall. Wallace, one of the rare players who can dominate a game without scoring a single point, similar to Dennis Rodman. All defense, no offense. Big Ben was so good protecting the rim, despite being undersized at 6'9", tied for most Defensive Player of the Year awards all time, arguably the toughest defensive era. There's a reason why all-time great defenders in Bruce Bowen and Tim Duncan never won a DPOY award, and KG only ended up with 1. From guarding superstars as small as Allen Iverson to as big as Shaq, a huge reason why the Lakers were held to under 82 points in the '04 finals. Wallace's overall numbers from a stat sheet might not look appealing, but his impact and hustle every night absolutely contagious. Teams were fearful going up against Detroit's front line every night, a fitting nickname, Fear the Fro. Josh Chodris, known for his Atlanta Hawk days, viewed as having huge star potential, the former 6th pick in the '04 draft out of Stanford, put up double digits each of his first 4 seasons in the league, mainly scoring off the bench at 6'8". After the Hawks offered him 5 years $33 in 2008, Chodris shocked the league by turning down the contract, instead opted 3 years $20 million playing in Greece. After 2 seasons, his play regressed in the NBA, became a limited bench player, amnesty by the Suns, few games with Brooklyn and New Orleans, spent more time overseas till 2019, became a real estate developer and entrepreneur. co-founded Landspire Group, a real estate investment fund defined by small businesses to expand investment platform for people of color excelling in the business world, launched a new social initiative to commit investing $1 billion in opportunity zone projects over the next 3 years. A big name in the real estate world will be even bigger for years to come. Muggsy Bogues, his documentary Always Believes, proves his unlikely journey to the big leagues. The shortest player all time at 5'3", doesn't seem possible for anyone that size to make it to the NBA, let alone have a solid career. From the early tough times growing up in Baltimore to becoming a star at Wake Forest, ending up being a first-round pick, Bogues had more than a solid playing career. Averages of over 7 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals, nearly 900 career games, insanely impressive for anybody his size. Teams had to change their offensive game plan when matching up with the savvy 135-pound defensive monster. Was everywhere on the court, the average point guard a whole foot taller than Bogues, but that didn't stop him from achieving greatness, especially known for his time with the Hornets, a pest on D, still top 25 all-time in assists as of 2022, sensational story, a true hero for many short ballers to look up to. Al Harrington, the 41-year-old former stretch four last played in the 2014 season, started at a cannabis company named Viola, the same name as his grandmother. The plan helped heal his grandma that was launched 8 years ago, but Harrington launched Village LLC in 2019, the concept for developing a platform for minority-owned cannabis brands to exist. While pro sports have been strict on athletes smoking that kush, and former NBA players either go to coaching or commentating to stay involved with the game, Harrington decided to have his own marijuana grow room in Detroit 10 years back, took a risk, seizing an opportunity to do something bigger than he's ever done. His business will do about $26 million in revenue this year. Recently partnered with former superstar Allen Iverson to launch a line of cannabis products and merch. Recently became an assistant coach for the Cape Town Tigers basketball team and the South Africa National Club. Royce White, the former first pick of the Houston Rockets, played just 3 NBA games, suffered from mental health struggles, very vocal about how poorly the league handled mental health a few years ago, diagnosed with anxiety as a kid, played college hoops at Iowa State, had a Draymond Green type style game. After his NBA short-lived career dominated the NBL, many believe White had NBA star potential if it wasn't for his anxiety. Now 30 years old, 6'8", 250, played in the Big 3 league. Even during his time mostly playing ball, White also trained in MMA and recently made his mixed martial arts debut as a heavyweight but did not get the win. The fight back on December 10th, the organization called the Legacy Fighting Alliance 120, lost by unanimous decision, got taken down multiple times, will have a long way to go in getting better in the fight business. Drafted over 9 years ago to making a transition to MMA, you don't see that too often, especially from former NBA players. White also very outspoken about politics on his social media. Darren Williams, who everybody all of a sudden remembers for the first time since retirement, the former 3-time All-Star had a boxing match on pay-per-view fighting against former NFL running back Frank Gore. Williams went on to defeat the NFL star. Talked about in the boxing world weeks before the match, Williams shown some good hands, gave the NBA a better look after Nate Robinson got put to sleep in 2020. At least the NBA 1-0 against the NFL with them hands. Who would have thought in 2021, former rival Chris Paul would be competing in the NBA Finals, still amongst one of the best players, while Darren Williams out the NBA for 4.5 years and competing in boxing matches. Williams says he's one and done after the 4-round fight. Iman Shumpert, basketball might be his second best talent after winning the title of Dancing with the Stars, performed a series of amazing dance moves with his partner, becoming the first former NBA player to win this type of competition, an extremely popular show, being inexperienced at first, spent tons of time perfecting his craft, the improvement in a short amount of time, very impressive. Shump might have never been one of the best NBA players, but can absolutely smoke every one of his former teammates in the dance-off. The 31-year-old had star potential before his ACL injury, will always be remembered as a role player, getting lots of recognition outside of basketball. Number 1, the one and only Kwame Brown. The viral video blew up that shocked the entire internet after Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, and all the small podcasts giggled and make jokes about Kwame, didn't want to acknowledge his name when Jeannie Buss mentioned Kwame being in the Pau Gasol trade.
People, oh, you got him for nothing, not realizing that what you guys gave him was Marc Gasol.
And Kwame Brown. And so,
Marc Gasol.
and
Right.
So, do you play with Mark?
No,
No.
that was
No.
a one-man trade. You just used the name. He was the name was just there.
Kwame at the time only had a few hundred followers on YouTube, and many fans already forgotten about him. Even former teammate Gilbert Arenas spoke about Brown. Kwame went on an epic rant, called Jackson a fake tough guy, gave Barnes the nickname Becky with the good hair. Before any of this happened, no one ever heard Kwame speak about anything, lived a very quiet life and reserved after retirement. Many couldn't even tell what his voice sounded like. Kwame continued to go off on all the people who bashed him for years. The Breakfast Club even brought up accusations about Brown's father, something unrelated to his beef between Matt Barnes, labeled and called names like Buzz, being a former #1 pick out of high school, and in the shadows of Michael Jordan. The blame for the Wizards' struggle mainly directed towards the former teenager. Although Brown never became an NBA star level type player, his name often viewed with negativity, stood up for himself, blasted everybody, challenged all their statements. Kwame made a lot of valid points. His critics became cautious talking about him. One after Stephen A. Smith, constantly questioning him why he was at them high schools, mentioning Kwame's name, calling him a bust in front of young kids. Brown continued to go after Stephen A. Every time Mr. Smith says a dumb statement on ESPN, Brown also shares some strong viewpoints, with former teammate Etan Thomas in a podcast saying he wasn't supposed to be with the Wizards for long. The franchise had a trade in place to trade him to the Bulls for an established Elton Brand. Given all the hate and name calling, Kwame still played 12 seasons in the NBA, made nearly $64 million. Brown continued sharing his thoughts, literally became an internet sensation overnight, went from having a couple 100,000 followers within weeks, became the hottest show on the internet, shared his view from basketball talks to politics, talks about life and the important things he focused on with the community, puts respect on his name, made sure nobody big in the media is to ever disrespect Kwame again. The 39-year-old, way more talked about now, making more noise off the court, more known than ever after retirement, all coming since May 2021. His website called Bus Life, popular phrases like mama's cooking, white zaddy, why were you at them high schools boy, a combination of real talk, humor, and of course plenty of swearing. Kwame, literally an entity of his own network, posts his videos pretty much every day since the Barnes and Jackson ran, an absolute classic redemption. Nowadays, many sports fans listen to Kwame Brown instead of networks like ESPN. Kwame gained a massive audience in the black community, a lot of people who aren't even into basketball. Kwame, a very powerful voice, mentions the phrase "we the people." 2021, the year the whole world knew who Kwame Brown really was and what he's truly made of, set the narrative straight, articulated and well spoken. Many, including myself, had a negative view of Brown as just a former NBA player, but changed many perspective on him as a person as soon as he told his truth. The only negative thing the media can ever say was just to bring up his playing days as a basketball player, but Kwame has become a powerful voice, now one of the most influential retired players, one of the biggest off the court turnaround stories from a former NBA player. Kwame will continue being a powerful voice for many years. His bounce back 2021 year alone should get him in the Basketball Hall of Fame. The work he puts in the community, although he won't make the Naismith Hall of Fame, Kwame Brown absolutely deserves to be in the 2021 YouTube Hall of Fame. During those rants, Kwame arguably more exciting to watch than some of the NBA playoff games. After retirement, out the spotlight for 8 years, now super influential. What a 2021 year for Kwame Brown.